The Ambitious Radio Network. Conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Are you an entrepreneur, startup junkie, or just someone interested in improving their leadership skills? If you're looking to be motivated, inspired, and uncover what it takes to get to the next level, listening to Ambitious Radio will be well worth the investment of your time. We have weekly engaging conversations with today's most influential thought leaders and entrepreneurs as they discuss their successes, failures, tipping points, and other priceless information that you can apply immediately after listening. And welcome to the show. Good to have you right here. It is Ambitious Radio, hosted by our friend Doug Parker, talking about entrepreneurship and leadership while interviewing interesting people and what makes them ambitious. Now, you know the show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, Grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system. You know, most of the time, small business owners need to personally guarantee any loans that their companies take out. That can be kind of tough to do if you have credit issues. So if you have less than perfect credit, go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for a free credit report evaluation. RepairMyCreditNow.com. Doug, what do we have going on today?
I am so excited, kind of wrapping up the 2016 year, launching into the 2017 year, and really just going through really a recap of what we kind of experienced this year and goal setting, those types of things for the year to come. So I'll jump right in without any hesitation. This episode, we will not have a featured guest, just going to review some of the ones that we've had on in the past and kind of just really evaluate what tomorrow holds. So with that being said, we are now going to be launching this show on Saturdays. We're going to have it from the 9 o'clock hour until 10 o'clock here in the Dallas market. And there's some other plans to syndicate and go a little bit further with our reach. Of course, we've always got Ambitious Radio, where you can go to, or ambitiousradio.com, I should say, where you can go and check out all of our previous episodes where we podcast them out. Any place that a great podcast can be listened to, you can pick it up there, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, whatever the case may be. And I've learned so much, and so I hope all of you listeners are getting great content out of this as well. And so, you know, if you've ever got someone that you'd like to hear interviewed, there's certain questions that you'd like to have kind of added to the mix, let us know. You can reach us on Facebook at Ambitious Radio, or you can also tweet us there at ambitious_radio, or you can reach out to me personally, Doug Parker. I am all over Facebook or LinkedIn, those types of things, and let us know who you might like to hear interviewed. When we first started this show, our goal was always to try to get great content from other ambitious leaders, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and just get whatever information that we can capture that can apply to business right now, not in a theoretical world, but in a real world, and apply that to our business. So a couple of my favorite interviews from this previous year and most listened to, one was Nadia Zeximbaeva. Now, one of the things that I have had to do is learn how to pronounce some names and words that I maybe hadn't previously had to say. So we were able to visit with her, and she had several golden nuggets in her interview that I really took home. She talked about, you know, that her generation was the last Soviet generation. She grew up in Eastern Europe and I guess what would have been formerly part of the Soviet Union, and remembered actually waiting in lines with her baby brother to be able to eat. And so there was just a lot of great things there, and she is an expert as it relates to change and reinventing yourself. And so her website is Chief Reinvention Officer. And guys, if you're not changing, if you cannot adapt, you know what they say, those that cannot adapt become extinct. So there was a lot of just, you know, really great information as to how to change and how to transition through things. She is an up-and-comer and really looking forward to seeing what all she does. She had a TED Talk and some other things that were really, really great. Also, and this was a previous episode, but it was Jada Edwards. Now, Jada is involved in many different things. Now, for one thing, she does a lot of stuff within the religious community and in churches. But one of the things that I took away from her was just her ability to break down personality styles. I'd seen her do some training at church before, and it really blew me away because she, you know, I've been to so many different trainings over the years, and she has, you know, really made it to where it was bite-sized and easy to wrap your head around and digest the information. She is a dynamic speaker, biblical teacher, and she's a mentor. She's also involved in things for the Dallas County Community Colleges. And for me, what I really liked was, it resonated with me because she had talked about, what are you doing what's your personality style when you're not on, when you're not at work, whenever you're on vacation, what's your personality style? And it really resonated because in my normal day-to-day operations, I've become a very director personality, and I'm effective in that role, and that's great and everything. But as the CEO of a company, what I really liked, though, was just this aha moment of, she says, there's a disconnect whenever you operate in a different personality style than in what it comes naturally to you, because what happens is when people see you on the weekends, or they see you after hours, and they see you cutting up with your friends and in a different style, for me, for instance, that they're like, what? This guy, he's all steamrolling and he's whatever, and that's not how he's being with me. And, that really resonated because I like to have a good time. I maybe have a little bit of socializer type personality in me. And when it's time to go to work, though, I flip that switch off, and it's intensity and it's go to work. And it's finding a way to operate in the zone where it's most natural to you so that you can really effectively use your skill set, and then also people aren't turned off by it. Because if you got somebody that's all the time a director and they're just steamrolling stuff, that's one thing. If you have a scenario where they, are a little bit more laid back, or whatever the case is, and then they snap at people, it just really can cause a little bit of tension, and it really just long term doesn't work out. But lots of great information from Miss Jada, and really appreciated her coming on the show as well. Now, one of my more recent ones was a lady that has a company or a nonprofit called Senorita. Now, she goes by Cookie, but her name is Estefania Valafortude. And so she really blew my mind because she's a young lady that came out of South America and in the Peru area, and she had a passion for basically orphans, and she wanted to break the cycle of people that were, or young ladies that had basically grown up in the orphanage and then they left, and then it wasn't, a few months or a few years later that they ultimately got pregnant. They were bringing their kids back because they couldn't, afford them, and they were growing up in the orphanage. And so what she was doing, or what she is doing, is educating all these young ladies and helping them get on track. And, by now she's probably already had a few of them that have graduated from college. The first generation of the graduates were college educated young ladies we're going through. And, it's not always just business-minded people that we're looking at. There are all sorts of folks, whether they're business-minded, whether they're nonprofit, it's really just thought leaders. And you got to look at all those different things because it takes all different types of folks to make the world go round. But she was on episode 58, and it was a little bit different interview than some of our other interviews because of the nature of the nonprofit. But she is absolutely a leader. She's making things happen, and it was a very interesting interview. Basically, she does kickboxing. Not professionally, but kickboxing as a way to earn money right now. She runs a gym and does some stuff there, and then also has the nonprofit, and really doing good things in the Peru area. And here in America, she's doing things to help generate revenue for that. Now, we've just got a couple minutes left in this segment, but I do want to kind of wrap up with talking about an author and a funding expert, Judy Robinett. Now, she was way back on episode 47, and we hear about the power of connection and the power of connecting people, and I will tell you what, this lady, she has 10 power connecting tips, and it starts with 3 golden questions. I'm not going to go over all that stuff, but I really didn't know what to think whenever I initially had scheduled the interview with her. But as I got to know her, immediately was connecting me with this person, with that person, talked about, hey, have you thought about writing a book? And I was like, well, I kind of have, and that's something on the horizon for 2017, and maybe even it may take me a little bit longer than 2017 to get it put together, but immediately gave me some connections and some skills to go out and apply to help connect other people as well. So great information from Miss Judy Robinett on episode number 47. Now, guys, I'm going over these little highlights because these were things that I personally picked out that I enjoyed hearing about. you may have some other things that you liked. And I encourage you, let me know what things that you enjoy, because I'm doing this for two reasons. When we put it together, again, it was designed to try to gather information to kind of, the way I looked at it was to broaden my horizons for Doug Parker, to try to get good information in my head by interviewing people. And then I really had hoped that people would enjoy the interviews and pick up the same kind of content that I was getting. That's the goal of the show, and I think we've succeeded in that. Hey, we're continuing to get better at it. I don't claim to be a professional recording artist necessarily, or not artist, but a radio personality, I should say. But I'm going through the process and getting better at these kinds of things, and the interviewees are just knocking it out of the park. And we'll get into a little bit more of that after a quick break here in just a minute. But we're going to talk about Pedro Chiamulera, that is out of Brazil. We're going to talk about Verne Harnish and several others right here on the Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, ambitious listeners, you hear us interviewing entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a common theme. They want to be more productive and improve their communication. As an ambitious entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. The Ambitious Radio Network recently partnered with Grasshopper to offer our listeners a special discount. Log on to ambitiousradio.com and click on the Grasshopper banner in the bottom right-hand corner. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Sound professional with a main greeting and multiple extensions that forwards callers to your mobile phone or others in your organization. Get a toll-free number or local number for your business with multiple extensions. Set up each extension with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get your voicemails emailed to you as an audio attachment or transcribe an email. Keep business calls separate from your personal calls. Plans start at $12 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember to click on the Grasshopper banner at ambitiousradio.com for a special discount for our listeners. Join the over 150,000 small business owners that have stayed connected with Grasshopper. See how Grasshopper works? It's the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn the world into your office.
As we get back into the show, let's give a shout out to our great sponsors, all3reports.com. That's all, the number 3 reports with an S.com. You know, many people check their credit every 3 to 5 years when they're financing a home or maybe when they're purchasing a new vehicle. But if there is an issue, it could be too late to do anything about it. So go to all3reports.com to find out more. Speaking of a new vehicle, a wise person once said, lease what depreciates, buy what appreciates. So go to Autoflex Leasing. They offer a better way to lease your next car. America's largest independent leasing company is Autoflex Leasing. Doug?
All right. This is Doug Parker, your host at the Ambitious Radio Network and Ambitious Radio. And I'll tell you what, love the interviews, love talking to all of these great folks. And I want to bring up someone that was really from the beginning of this year that really just blew my doors off. It's a gentleman by the name of Verne Harnish. And Verne is the author of many, many books. One is Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. He also is the CEO of Gazelles. And, he also was the founder of the Young Entrepreneurs Organization, also known now as just Entrepreneurs Organization. They've got something like 10,000 groups all over the world on 6 of the 7 continents. And really, I was reading the Mastering the Rockefeller Habits back, maybe 2 years ago or so. And as I was actually sitting in my truck, I had pulled over. I was waiting for a meeting to go in to my church, and I was maybe 30 minutes early. So I thought, I'll just kind of read through this a little bit. And Verne put his email address right there in the book. Just, hey, email me, something. I can't remember the exact details. But I zipped him a quick email, and literally, while I was sitting there in the truck, he responded back that, hey, see you had some success in your business and have been on the Inc. 500 list. Thanks for reaching out. Call me anytime. Blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, that is unbelievable. This guy just responded. So I started researching him a little bit. He actually has now moved to Spain, raising his family there. But as I started working on this project with Ambitious Radio, I thought, what a great interview that would be. I wonder if I could get someone of that caliber on the show. And I reached out to him, and to my unbelievable surprise, he was willing to do it. Very friendly. I had to kind of get the time zones lined up, and we had to do it a couple months in advance to get it all scheduled. He's a very, very busy man. But he just blew my doors off with his friendliness, his approachability. And, guys, one of the things that I'll tell you is mentors are so important, and finding people to invest in you. And that's one of the things over the years that, I've always reached out to people. I haven't been scared to do that, but you don't always know what the limitations are. There's some people that you probably mentally think, well, I don't think I could probably get to that person. Maybe it's a Warren Buffett, or maybe it's a Bill Gates, or somebody, crazy top of the top, two of the richest men in the world. Well, those might be out of reach. I don't know, but I do know this. If you don't reach out to them, if you wanted to talk to them, and if you don't reach out to them, you're never going to get a hold of them. You would be amazed at the people that if you reach out to, that they will, give you a little bit of their time, or they'll answer a few of your questions. And sometimes, you really hit it off and you build relationships. It's been great in these interviews to just organically build some relationships. And some of the folks have told me, hey, why don't you interview this person, or why don't you interview that person? And they'll actually give me a connection that I would not have even thought about. And that's actually, where my connection with Judy Robnett came from. It was through one of our other interviews, and it was just just really good to be able to have those types of conversations. But as we continue on, Vern, he is the CEO of Gazelles, which he's basically just trying to create these fast growing organizations that move quickly. Those are the ones, if you're not moving, then you're dying, kind of a deal. And so he wants to create these Gazelles, and it really helps people when they're scaling up their businesses and trying to really rapidly expand them. Great interview, great content, and this guy's connected to everybody in the world pretty much. I mean, whether it's Peter Lencioni or Tom Peters, Jack Stack, and he's just connected with just about everyone. And as we kind of transition and talk about Jack Stack, he was also on our show back on episode 46. Now, that was back in July of this year, of 16, I should say. And Jack, I had the pleasure of meeting him. One of the best guys, really just down to earth, good guys you've ever met in your life. And he wrote the book, The Great Game of Business, and he and Bo Burlingham got together on that. Bo was previously the editor-at-large of Inc. magazine. I think he might be with Fortune magazine now, but with that being said, this Great Game of Business, they just tried to gamify businesses, and what they mean by that is having really transparency in all of the accounting, all the books, so that everyone really knows what is really going on, and that they know that whenever they are wasteful, they can see that. Whenever they are a little bit more frugal and take care of their business, they can see that, so that everyone is on the same page and trying to accomplish the same things. But I had the great fortune of being able to go to Springfield, Missouri, to study his company as a part of a deal called Small Giants with Inc. magazine. Was able to go up there and really get a rock star backstage pass to his organization and really hear the story of SRC, Springfield Remanufacturing Corporation. They have started something like 30 or 40 companies. They're doing, I think it's close to $1 billion a year in revenue, and they are just very successful. They spin out these other organizations from their leaders within their current companies, and have the ability to, from a branding perspective, and then also from just a standard operating procedure, to leverage that so that they can groom their people to go to the next level, and then they don't lose them. They actually help them start another company that's kind of part of that business. So, really some good information. And that's Jack Stack. He's the CEO of SRC Holdings, Springfield Remanufacturing Corporation, and really enjoyed my time with him on the radio. He was here in Dallas for an event that was going on, and I'll tell you what, it was really just quite a time. So great interview there. And so speaking of great interviews, now Jen Briney, she was on episode 55, and it was something that was a little bit different than what I was used to, because what she basically does is she just goes in and she reviews all the laws and how these laws are getting designed, and not designed, but how they're getting passed, I guess. You hear these little things on TV. She's with her company is called Congressional Dish, and she does a podcast a couple times per month where she basically exposes all the shenanigans that goes on, in the government and those kind of things, and how a law becomes a bill, or how a bill becomes a law. And it's not exactly like you think. And so there's a lot of stuff that is inside of some of these laws that you really don't realize. And she's just seemingly a pretty, average young lady that normal kind of upbringing and whatnot, but just decided she wanted to do something about, some of these crazy things that are getting passed. And, she really, when it comes to lobbying and those kind of things, she just exposes what's in there. She just reads, goes to the actual original documents and reads those things. She says she doesn't really watch, the TV news. And it all got started when she was traveling abroad and she saw the other news in the other countries, and it was so different than what ours was here in the States. And so she just kind of got fed up as a taxpayer and decided, you know what? She doesn't, bear any allegiance to any political party or ideology, but she's just going to get to the bottom of it and expose, here's what's going on. And I say expose, sometimes it's not necessarily bad. It's just, hey, here's what the law actually says that is being passed. So that was a really cool interview and just kind of eye-opening for me. I know in my business, I have a government affairs person that we worked with our trade association that used to say, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. And, regardless of how these laws get passed or whatever the case is, you have to be aware of how it gets and how they get made. And you got to be part of that process. Otherwise, you might be on the menu, and that's definitely not a good thing there. So that was an interesting interview, something a little bit different. And probably one of the more interesting individuals that I met was a guy named Jay Baer. Jay is a business strategist and a best-selling author. He was back on episode 32, and that was all the way back in April. And he has a book that's called Hug Your Haters. He's got several books, one called Utility. He's got one called The Now Revolution, and then I think he's got a couple of other books as well. But with that being said, this Hug Your Haters, it says how to embrace complaints and keep your customers. And, so many times we get upset with customers or they get upset with us or whatever the case is. And in the old days, they had to pick up the phone and call you, and then you would talk to them, and then you'd get it worked out. Nowadays, they'll just go blast you on the internet. And if you don't respond, even if you do respond to them, sometimes they'll go out and blast you on the internet. And so you basically have to be, aware of how to deal with those scenarios, those situations. And he kind of gives an example of people that's like, hey, I'm just not going to participate in that. And he was given the statistics of something like, I think it's like 50, 60, 70% of the people out there go and review online reviews before they will purchase something. And so if you are ignoring those things, as a business owner, it could be a catastrophic scenario for you. And so it just tells you how to embrace that, how to process through that, and just look at it from a different perspective, because people in this day and age do find ways to hate on you, and you can't just ignore them in this day and age. So wrapping up this particular segment, but we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsors. And really, we're going to talk a little bit more about a couple guests, and we're going to transition into kind of what did 2016, how did it wrap up for Doug Parker, as well as what's on the agenda for 2017 and a little bit of goal setting right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Here's another RepairMyCreditNow.com story.
Home ownership. It's the American dream. It's a goal you've always hoped to achieve. You've spent countless weekends looking for the perfect house on the ideal block. The rates are low and you've saved enough for the down payment. Unfortunately, now the mortgage company says there's a little hitch. Okay, let's be honest. It's a gigantic, gargantuan hitch. It's your credit. And it looks like your estimated house payment will be a lot more.
www.repairmycreditnow.com.
Hello, this is Doug Parker with RepairMyCreditNow.com. Do you have less than perfect credit, a repo, maybe some late payments, a collection account? Are they being reported accurately? Studies show that over 70% of Americans have inaccuracies on their credit reports. Where do you fit in? Go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for your free credit report evaluation. And remember, your credit is your future. If you want to get started now, log on now. RepairMyCreditNow.com.
RepairMyCreditNow.com. www.repairmycreditnow.com.
Back in here on the show, it's Ambitious Radio Network. Hey, are you thinking of expanding your business but don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a new phone system? Consider Grasshopper.com. You get to keep your existing number, you have multiple extensions, voicemails transcribed, and no new hardware. Grasshopper.com is the entrepreneur's phone system. Let's get back to the show with Doug Parker.
All right, we're back on the Ambitious Radio Network, and this is your host, Doug Parker, and really just wrapping up. We've got one more guest I want to talk a little bit about. We've got Pedro Chiamulera. And, that's kind of what I did whenever he was on the show with me. I mean, I couldn't get his name right in the very beginning, but I got it right after a few more times. As I mentioned earlier, pronouncing some of these last names that I haven't heard before, they're not like Smith and Jones, but I've gotten such great information. Different background. This gentleman came from Brazil. He is an Olympian. He did very well in the Olympics as a sprinter, a hurdler. And, he had talked about, kind of him growing up with some of his brothers and some of their talent, but they were lazy, and how, he is disciplined. And disciplined was one of the things that really made a huge difference in his life. And, really, in this world, you're either going to be disciplined or you're going to be disciplined. Either way, you're going to get some discipline. It just matters, is it intrinsically that you're doing it, or is it extrinsically being done to you? So, really, he talks about how he was internally disciplined, and that really helped him. He had a passion to solve problems, and now he helps with basically fraud prevention on credit cards and merchant accounts and such. And, a little different perspective. He brought up some really great books that I've enjoyed reading, one of them being The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. There's several other books that continue to come up over and over and over again during these interviews. Think and Grow Rich was one of those books. The Greatest Salesman in the World was another book that came up several times. The Secret. I don't know if you guys caught any of the episodes that talked about that, but it talked about just visualizing and putting it out there. And if you put it out there, it's amazing how it'll come back to you. John C. Maxwell, as an author, that was brought up many, many times. Some of the writings that he has, as well as How to Win Friends and Influence People. So many great books that were recommended. And, we always try to document all that stuff on our page, ambitiousradio.com. You can go to any of the guests' pages, and you just hit the little drop down, and it has all their show notes. It also has the recommendations that they had, as well as their episode of the show. And with that being said, I want to kind of transition in a little bit and start talking about the current situation, the current year. As you're wrapping up the 1 year and you're starting the new year, it really is an opportunity to reset. So, we can call this Reset 2017, whether it was the best year you've ever had in your life or the worst year you've ever had in your life. You can really click the button and reset it. And I want to get into a couple of things, because it's easy to get going, and sometimes you don't understand everything. I'm going to give you a little recap of some things that have happened in my life. 2016 was really some really great things. I mean, my son has a kiddo on the way, which means my wife and I will be grandparents in 2017. That's exciting. It's going to be a little baby girl, and so that's pretty cool. Has some business ventures that have gone very, very well. And even I don't know if I would say better than expected, but I have high expectations, and whenever I hit those expectations, it's always great to be able to do some of those things. So with the energy business I'm part of, that's doing really, really well, and just rocketing off. And there's lots of things in 2017 I'm going to have to put in place, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next segment. Goal setting, strategy, and then give you some tools to help out with that. But you really want to review your current year. You want to look and see, hey, what's going on? What did I get accomplished? What did I not get accomplished? What do I need to carry over to the next year? And for me, there were some things that I really wish would have gone a little bit differently, in 2016. For instance, one thing, not everything is rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. The reality is you cannot do anything about some situations. And then sometimes there are things that you can do stuff about that for whatever reason you just sit around and complain about. And I want to really, kind of draw a demarcation line between those things. So for instance, there are bad things that happen that are out of your control. And I was listening to some Joel Osteen a while back, and he was talking about, you need to have a file, kind of like a mental file, that is something to the effect of, I don't understand it. Okay. I don't understand why this would happen. And you need to put stuff into that file, things that you have no control over, and just say, I don't understand that. Okay. And don't dwell on it. Set it aside. For instance, my wife this year, some of you guys may have heard me talk a little bit about it, but my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer back in, I think, February or maybe it was early March. And, the first thing you think of is is it over? Is it what we, and you don't know, because you haven't even, she's got it in her body, but you don't know how, has it metastasized, what's going on with it. And it's just this paralysis of fear. And so what we did was, we didn't have control that it was there, but what we did have control over was trying to find out what was going on, find the best doctors, what type of time frame did we have. I try to pick stuff up out of books, and in one of the Jim Collins books, which I think it was Great by Choice, if I'm not mistaken, but he had talked about someone in there that had an issue with prostate cancer. And the CEO basically did a quick evaluation and talked to a couple people, and they said that within the next, I think it was month or two, nothing significant was going to change with his cancer. So he went to different radiologists, he went to different doctors that did surgery, surgical oncologists, and tried to figure out what was the best treatment, oncologist that administered chemotherapy. And that's kind of what we did. We went to different places and settled on UT Southwestern, felt like they had the best resources for what she had, and we felt most comfortable with that. And then we basically started the treatment. And, they went in and she did chemotherapy, and she lost all of her hair. And that was something that, that's not really fair. It's not really much fun. I don't know why it happened. I don't understand it. I just put it in a file, put it aside, and say, hey, I can't do anything about that she has it. What I can do something about is getting her treatment and trying to do as many things as we possibly can to eradicate it from her system, keep her spirits high, and move forward. We had some business things that didn't go so well. From time to time, when you're in business, there are things that are going on that are not so much fun. When you're an entrepreneur, you're the boss. You're the one that's in charge, but you're also the one that whenever everything hits the fan, you got to figure it out. You can't delegate it to your boss or to somebody else. And so whether it's litigation, whether it's things along those lines, employee issues, just the way the general economy is, you just have to deal with what you've got. And, that other book that we talked about, The Obstacle is the Way, by Ryan Holiday, that brought out some great information. It's like, it really doesn't matter what the situation is. And, I read this quote the other day that, your excuses only sound good to you. So I could easily say, oh, my wife's got cancer or this or that, and people will be nice to you because of that. But really, they don't care. They just want results. That's really what it boils down to. And so, we have to just keep pushing through and do what we got to do. And, what we don't have control over, we don't have control over. What we do have control over, focus on those things and, really make it happen. And, really focus on what's within your control, okay? Don't let the things out of your control interfere with the things that are within your control, okay? So that's something that's a big deal. And, the question, really is, as you're kind of looking at your goals, basically next level. I mean, hey, what's going on? What do you want to do? Everything affects everything. That's a Jim Rohn quote. So everything you're doing, whether it's good or bad, it affects everything. It's like the Darren Hardy book, The Compound Effect. Every little change makes a difference long term. So are you headed in the right direction, or are you headed in the wrong direction? And that's what we want to really, put in place and affect as we move forward into the next year, when you're talking about your goal planning and setting sessions and those kinds of things. So we'll get into some very practical steps on how you can do those things. But one thing I do want to leave you with in this segment is, something like 95% of all goals or all New Year's resolutions are broken by January the 15th, okay? A little bit over 2 weeks into a 52-week year, they're broken. And so, guys, process through that, because whenever you're setting or when you're putting together a New Year's resolution, kind of quote unquote, a resolution means to resolve something. Okay, so you want to get these issues resolved, whether it's your family, whether it's your finances, whether it's fitness, whatever the case may be. You want to get those things resolved. So right after a quick word from our sponsors, we'll be right back to hear more about goal setting on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Could you lose your career because of your faith? Could your pastor be sued because of his sermons? Can students and teachers be punished because of what they believe about God or what they say? Can the government or even your employer force you to violate your beliefs? Get the answers, and if necessary, legal protection from First Liberty Institute. This is Kelly Shackelford, president of First Liberty. We are the nation's largest legal organization dedicated exclusively to restoring religious freedom in America. In fact, First Liberty's nationwide network of top attorneys win over 90% of their cases. We've won at the Supreme Court all the way down to the local schools. If you want hope for religious freedom, go to firstliberty.org and get your free In God We Trust window clean. That's firstliberty.org.
And we're back in here on the show. It's Ambitious Radio Network, recharging the ambitious mind, body, and spirit, made possible by RepairMyCreditNow.com. Having bad credit can be really draining. It's okay to not be okay as long as you're on the road to being okay. Let RepairMyCreditNow.com help get you back on track. Many of our ambitious listeners prefer to listen to books as opposed to reading them. Now, with that, we've teamed up with Audible.com to offer you one free audiobook. Just go to ambitiousradio.com, click on the Audible banner on the page to find out more. Back to the show now with Doug Parker.
All right, this is Doug Parker finishing up the last segment. It's hard to believe that we've already blasted through 3 of these segments, but we're going to really jump in and just kind of wrap up the 2016 year launching into 2017. As we mentioned, there's always things changing. We're so excited about this new Saturday show that's going to be in the 9 o'clock hour here in the Dallas market. We've also got some things we're looking at on expanding into syndicating into some other areas. So that's going to be lots of fun doing that. And, goal setting is so important. And these were things that I had put on my goal list to look at for 2017. And it's amazing, how things work. So what you think, eventually you will say. What you say, eventually, you may put in writing. What you put in writing, you will eventually do. Now, the reason why that's so important is because the people that you surround yourself by have such an impact, because sometimes what you think is something that you have heard. And so Proverbs 13:20 talks about, he who walks with the wise will become wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. And I'm going to tell you what, I in my life have been around some very wise individuals, and I have gained enormous amounts of wisdom from them. And there are some fools that I've been around, and it's not that I became foolish. It is that I was harmed. I promise you, I probably acted foolish, and and then ultimately, that suffered some consequences of that foolishness, which equated to some harm. But we really want to take just a bit of an approach right now at looking at what does 2017, what does the next year look like for you? And there's a lot of different things that we want to look at. We talked about resetting 2017 for the next year, whether it was good, whether it was bad, hitting the reset button. Now, one of the questions that I've got for you is that, are you serious about your future? Now, you're probably bobbing your head, yes. Yeah, I'm serious about it, Doug. I really am. Now, I hear you. Okay, that's fine. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So the question is that if you are serious about your future and you really want to change something, now you might have all the money you want. You may have the relationships in a perfect situation where you're totally satisfied with all your relationships. You may be in tip-top physical condition. And if you are, God has blessed you. There's no question about it, okay? Most people, that's not the case. They're looking at something where whether it's family or friends, improving those relationships or repairing some of those relationships. It may be your finances. Most people would like to make more money, but I have found over the years that you can spend just about everything that you make. And so the question is that how much are you keeping? How much of that is for you? How much of that is for others, for charity? One of the things our pastor says at church a lot is that when you're given more than enough, you need to ask yourself, is that intended for me? Or was that intended for someone else? Was it something where I need to be sharing some of that? And you need to think about that, pray about that, whatever your process is, and then figure out if that is for you, and then how to operate on that amount of money, and then put some into savings. I think it's in the maybe The Richest Man in Babylon, I believe is the book. It talks about it, but it talks about, gathering eggs essentially. And whenever you gather eggs, if for every time you gather eggs and you go empty them out and you leave, 2 of the 10 in your pouch, eventually your pouch will overflow if you're saving 20%. And, it may seem hard to survive on 80%, but most people can do it. They just have to make some adjustments. And so that's a great recommendation, is trying to operate on, 70 or 80% of what you make and save the rest. And the tithing is what I believe in. Tithe your first 10% and then try to save another 20%, and then the remaining 70% live on that. And then fitness. Let's look at your fitness. I mean, what kind of physical shape are you in? Some of it's literally your shape. Do you want to get more, just in better shape? Do you want to have your body and be more healthy where you can do more activities? Sometimes it has to do with your eating habits. Actually, it almost always has to do with your eating habits, but then also in this sedentary lifestyle that we live in, with people sitting around looking at computers all day long, or iPhones or whatever. And trust me, I do plenty of that, but I try to have some physical activity as well. And I'm working on some things this year. It has to do with rest and sleep, and getting better quality sleep. I've always slept about 8 hours, but I'm trying to make sure that I've got excellent quality of sleep, which has to do with the bed I'm sleeping on, which has to do with the darkness of my room, with not having a bunch of LED blue lights and lights shining through windows and stuff like that, as well as I got these new handy dandy glasses that I'll probably talk a little bit about in the future, that you basically, they block out some of the blue lights, so that I don't know if I'm gonna wear them all day long or not, but for the last hour or two of the day when I'm winding down my day and I'm not necessarily in public, it makes it, it kind of tunes out some of those blue lights to help you sleep better. And I just want the best quality sleep I can get. I know we're working out with my wife to try to make sure she's as healthy as possible, and to have as little stress as possible, and just get healthier, and just to enjoy life. When you have a scare like we did earlier, with her cancer, it makes you reevaluate some stuff. It makes you think, hey, when you think, is it over? You've worked all this hard. We've been married for over 2 decades. We've been grinding out, working hard for tomorrow, when tomorrow comes. And then we're looking at, hey, is tomorrow coming? You really got to evaluate stuff. So we're going to try to make the most of this next year and really plan accordingly. And we talked about 95% of goals. Well, you know what? They are our New Year's resolutions. They're broken in just 15 days. And so that leaves very few people that are really doing it. So there's self-talk. I want to talk a little bit about that, to make sure that you are positively talking to yourself. Ziglar has some self-talk cards, Zig Ziglar's organization. I'll put a link on our site here, but you can just Google Zig Ziglar self-talk cards, and it's got a little printout that has great information, and it's editable, where you can go in there and it talks just about every morning before you get started and at the close of every day, just standing in front of the mirror and repeating some positive affirmations. And really what you're doing is you're just highlighting the things that are good in this world and the things that you want to accomplish. And that helps to basically activate part of your brain, the reticular activator, that basically, it's like when you buy a new car and you start seeing those cars everywhere because you're familiar with it now. So you're it feels like you're attracting those cars because you're seeing them all the time. It's because your brain tunes out a bunch of stuff. It just makes it to where you're not tuning it out anymore. You're focused on it, and now it's becoming more and more apparent to you. So we want to make sure that you're doing positive self-talk, eliminating the head trash. We talked about how dilution is the solution to pollution. And so if you got a polluted mind, you want to get rid of the head trash. The way to do that is to dilute as much negative information as possible and keep as much positive information inside your head. And then, there's all kinds of great information, whether it's TED Talks, whether it's podcasts, whether it's listening to stuff like this that can really get you going. I listen to many, many podcasts, and one of the things I listen to is the EntreLeadership podcast that Dave Ramsey has, and he's got a great kind of packet on goal setting. I'm going to put a link to that on Ambitious Radio on this episode, and it kind of breaks down some of the things that you're wanting to track your goals and how to do those things, and it talks about 5 goal-setting secrets of successful leaders. And if you're listening to this show, you're probably a leader within your organization. You're the entrepreneur, you're the owner, whatever the case may be, or you may be an up-and-comer that wants to do those things. And so that's great information to process. Also, Michael Hyatt has a great program on 8 strategies super successful people are using to accomplish more next year. And so I'll put that packet on there as well. But it really has information from John Maxwell. It has it from Tony Robbins and several other people that I'm sure that you will really appreciate and get content from. Andy Andrews. And so anyway, I'll put that packet on there as well. Really appreciate everyone, tuning in and listening to Ambitious Radio. Again, as we mentioned a little bit earlier in the broadcast, we want to make this as great of a show as possible and for you to get as much out of it as you possibly can. So if there's someone that you would like to have interviewed, I'd love to get their information. Zip it over to me, dp@ambitiousradio.com, or you are more than welcome to give me a call anytime. You can just go to the website. My information is there, ambitiousradio.com. And as always, we're interviewing ambitious leaders, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, people that are changing the faces of their organizations. And if you want to tune in, it used to be tuning on Wednesdays. Now it's tuning on Saturdays at the 9 o'clock hour, or you can catch the replays at ambitiousradio.com. Remember, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you cannot make both. So go out there and be ambitious.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Radio Network, hosted by serial entrepreneur Doug Parker. Join us weekly as we have engaging conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders on topics that can be applied immediately after listening. Like what you've heard? Listen to other interviews at ambitiousradio.com or subscribe on iTunes.